lot of Sooner fans are pretty irritated with the way that Vegas has projected the Oklahoma Sooners going into their first season into the SEC. And it does seem unfair when you consider where Oklahoma has come from, of course, being under Lincoln Riley, being in the national spotlight time and time again, making it to the college football playoff several times. And then, of course, Brent Venables takes over one bad season. And we can blame that on a lot of things. It was a rebuild year, and he had to completely rebuild from the ground up with a completely new system, specifically on defense. So, there was a lot of things going into that first season where we only won 6 games. And then, of course, right after that season, he turns it around and goes straight to 10 wins. As Oklahoma fans, we understand how good this team really is and how far they've come, especially when we go back to just a couple of seasons ago, and understanding the big adjustment and then the big jump that they took from 6 wins to 10 wins with really the exact same team doing that. So this is a totally different team than I think the media understands, but that's what we're here for. We're going to talk about this, and I'll try to give an explanation to Sooner fans, even though I'm right with you. I think that 7.5 is very low, but right now Vegas has the Oklahoma Sooners at 7.5 wins on the season. That means they only project Oklahoma to have 7 or 8 wins, and so they pick right in the middle for that betting line between the two. So you look at 7.5, and that feels like such disrespect because, again, we're the Oklahoma Sooners. We are in the national spotlight every single season. Even last year, there was a moment where we thought for sure we had hopes of a college football playoff run. We had hopes of course, winning the Big 12 for the last year that we were there. But looking at that 7.5 win total projection, I'll kind of explain why it is that way. And I'm sure some of you probably already understand, but let's get into it. Is it fair for the Oklahoma Sooners to be kind of disrespected a little bit? I think we can definitely call it disrespect. I think a lot of people, specifically in the media, don't really understand this Oklahoma Sooners squad and how good they really are. But does it feel like disrespect to you as a Sooner fan? Because I know I definitely take it that way. But looking at it, which games do I feel confident? Which games should we feel confident that we can win? I'm just going to walk through, and I know I already did a kind of a breakdown of each team, so I'm just going to do a very brief walkthrough of this schedule to kind of take a deep dive into it. First, of course, starting off with Temple, Houston, and Tulane. We should be working out the kinks in these games and getting ready for SEC play. I expect these 3 to be wins. I think every Sooners fan, even people in the media, should expect Oklahoma to win these first 3 games. These first 3 non-conference games, they should be easy enough. I'm not going to say they're cupcakes because I think Houston and Tulane will show us some things that we will want to work on going into SEC play. But first SEC game at home against Tennessee, this is one that really can't be chalked up as a win if we're being honest with ourselves. But us as Sooner fans, we know that we can pull it off. We know that we can win this one, but we'll mark it as a 50-50 game right now. You can't mark that as a win. Now, Auburn in Jordan-Hare, Oklahoma is currently, in my opinion, a better team than Auburn. When you look at the roster, when you look at what they had put together last year, I just feel like Oklahoma is deeper across the board than Auburn. I think Auburn stands out in a couple of position groups, and I think Hugh Freeze has that entire team on a roll, and I think they're going places, and I'm really excited to see where Hugh Freeze takes Auburn. But in my opinion, Auburn can't be just chalked up as a win, even though I do think that we should be able to win this game, because Jordan-Hare. OU fans don't really understand Jordan-Hare or the atmosphere there at Jordan-Hare. To understand that atmosphere, we've never played in Jordan-Hare. We've never played Auburn at Auburn. They've never played in Norman. The only 2 times that we've ever met with Auburn was in 1972 and 2017, both in the Sugar Bowl. So this is going to be a completely different atmosphere. It's the first time that we're going to experience this SEC atmosphere being in the SEC. Of course, I think just a few years ago, seems like a couple of years ago, we were just in Knoxville, kind of experiencing that. That was definitely big, but I think this team is better than that Tennessee team was. And so, looking at this, I think this is a very difficult game because of the atmosphere. If this was in Oklahoma, I think I would just mark this one as I expect to win it, because I just think we're just a little bit better. But that atmosphere is weird, and Auburn fans know it. SEC fans know it. SEC players especially know it. So it's going to be interesting, to say the least. Definitely an atmosphere to go and to experience this year if you're looking to travel as an Oklahoma fan. I will definitely be there. Now, going to Texas in Dallas for the Red River rivalry. We should be able to beat Texas the same way that we did last year. In my opinion, I think there's no reason for us not to be able to go into that game and expect to win that game in Dallas the way that we did a season ago. They went and upgraded some positions that they needed to fill, but so did we. And I think we did just as good at attacking the transfer portal in areas that we needed, specifically the offensive line. And then if we've even got a couple of extra attacks for the wide receiver core / tight ends that we can look at. So both teams, when you look at it, both teams I think look better on paper than they did a season ago, in my opinion. I think when you look on paper before the season ever starts, I think both these teams look better than they did last year at this time. So I think that's something to take a look at. Although I'm predicting Oklahoma to win this game, and I think Oklahoma does end up winning the Red River rivalry and pulling home that golden hat, it's just not one that we can chalk up on the schedule as a win, unfortunately. I'm right there with you, Oklahoma fans, horns down, but stay with me, okay? We're getting through this. South Carolina in Norman, finally an SEC opponent that I think Oklahoma is better than, and we get them at home. I feel like we should be able to chalk this one up as a win. If we're chalking them up, this is one that we can mark down on the schedule. We've got to win here, South Carolina in Norman. The Gamecocks really don't scare me. I think they lost two of their best players. We've talked about that with Spencer Rattler and Xavier Legette. So I think this roster, this team, this coaching staff, they don't really scare me a whole lot when I look at them, especially coming into Norman. So I feel like this is a game that Oklahoma should win. All right, this is one of those that I feel like you have to chalk that one up. Now, Ole Miss in Oxford, Mississippi. Well, again, I think Oklahoma has a chance to pull off a win here, but this isn't one that I would mark down as a win. And I hope you guys can understand where I'm coming from when I say this, trying to be reasonable with this preseason and looking forward without knowing either of these two teams. This is one that I just really can't mark down as a win on the schedule. There are some concerns going into this game because I know how good Ole Miss is projected to be going into this season by a lot of experts. And really, the more that I hear about Ole Miss, the more I understand about that, about how good they can be. Maybe by this point in the season, when we get there, when we're going to Ole Miss, we can feel a lot more confident about going into Oxford and walking away with a win. But it isn't an easy one right now pre-season. So, again, hang with me. Next game is going to, we're going to have Maine come to Norman. Well, I mean, if we're not chalking this one up as a win, I quit. I'm done with this. So Maine, absolutely a win. Now we have Missouri in Columbia. I understand why the media is so high on Mizzou this year. I really do. I totally understand it. They showed a lot of promise last year. They hung tight with some really good teams. They hung tight with teams like LSU. They had a really big win against K-State early in the season with a crazy good field goal. Luther Burden is great. Brady Cook is coming back. They return a lot of other talent and very important talent. And they even brought some new talent into the mix. But I still just feel like Oklahoma is better than them overall. I think Oklahoma is just the better team. I think we have the better roster. I think we have the better coaching staff. I think we have the better resources. There's just no reason for me to look at this game not expecting Oklahoma to come out with a win. So I think it's going to be a battle. Most likely will be a battle in Columbia. Don't get me wrong. Don't have me on the record saying I think you can chalk this one up, no problem. But I do think we can mark it down as an expectation to win this game in Mizzou. Now we get Alabama at home. This is a very difficult one for me because we haven't seen a Kalen DeBoer team. And you look at this, we have yet to see any sign that Alabama will be the dominant force that they were under Nick Saban. But we've also not seen a reason to look at them and believe that they won't be just as good or at least very close to it. So this is another game that I truly believe that Oklahoma wins. I think Oklahoma can win this game, but obviously you can't expect the odds to be heavily in our favor against the Tide. And again, Kalen DeBoer is a very good coach. He was given a very good team, so why wouldn't they be a really good team going into this season? Last game of the season, LSU in Death Valley. This, again, is another game that I have no reason to believe that we couldn't pull off the victory. But one thing concerns me about this, and it's LSU under Brian Kelly and how good they are in the end of the season, because they get very hot. They're one of those teams that heats up the most at the end of the season. Add that on top of the environment in Baton Rouge, this smells like a very tough game. It smells like a game that is going to come down to the wire. It's going to be probably a higher scoring game than we would like to see, especially with our defense. And looking at this, I don't know, because again, we've talked about Brian Kelly expects his defense to be better. We don't know yet. We haven't seen them on the field. I'd really have to see it to believe it, because they were atrocious last year. So looking at this one, I do think that each team could have a lot riding on this game. This could be a really big game with a lot of implications. But I just can't give this one to the Sooners just yet.
Hey Sooner fans, did you enjoy this video? Well, if so, please help us out by hitting that subscribe button. If you want to see the rest of this video, you can click over here. Otherwise, we also have more videos right over here. Thank you so much for all of your support. Hope to see you next time. Boomer.